Hello, good afternoon po. Okay na? Pwede na po makapagsimula? Okay, thank you very much. Maghanap ka na ng prayer mo. Maghanap ka ng prayer mo, Bing. Tao mo. Maghanap ka ng mabilis lang. Boses mo na lang.
Kahit sarili mo na lang.
Mas kasadiri mo na lang, be.
Tagalog. O baka pwedeng kahit hindi si Aaron na magano, baka kaya nyo magano.
Dahil nakafocus ka yan. Okay na raw, nakahanap ka na. Boses mo lang. Okay na.
Our Father in heaven.
Isa lang okay. Pagkatas ng opening ako.
So, hello, good afternoon everyone. Before we start, okay, good afternoon everyone. Before we start, let's have a opening prayer first to be led by Mr. Aaron Overnal. Yan ka mo.
Okay. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Heavenly Father, we come before you today with grateful hearts, thankful for the opportunity to gather together. As we begin this meeting, we ask for your guidance and presence to be with us. Grant us wisdom, understanding, and patience. As we work towards our goals and objectives, may your light shine upon us, and may we be filled with your love and grace. And in your name we pray, amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen.
So, for our opening remarks, let's all welcome Miss Rian Joy Pereira. I-on sa pa mo. On, off, after nga.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. We are the group 5. This topic will be the continuation of the seminar workshop last meeting, and this workshop has a theme of 21st century literacies, a seminar workshop entitled Nurturing 21st Century Minds, exploring the intersection of cyber, eco, and creative literacy.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Rian Joy Ferreira, for your opening remarks. So, before we start, shall I introduce to you our topics for today and the facilitators who are going to facilitate. So, we have here session 6, session 8 rather, cyber digital literacy, cyber citizenship in the digital age, internet safety, to be facilitated by Jessa Pluralde, and cyberbullying and cybercrimes, managing computer threats, researching and evaluating the web, to be led by me or facilitated by me, and social media use, mobile devices, digital traits by Miss Rian Joy Pereira, and eco-literacy and sustainable development, the 7 environmental principles by Mr. Aaron Obernal, and making schools dark green schools, environmental education by Eileen F. Blanza, and visual literacy, eye, hand, brain coordination by Vina C. Gonzalez, and verbal creativity, visual creativity, aesthetics by Irish Pearl G. Angeles. So for today, I am Yuri Jane Shong, your Masters of Ceremony. Okay, let's have our first session.
Ma-activity muna sa presentation.
Okay, Miss Eileen, next slide please. So before we proceed to our session, let's have readings of our objectives and our preliminary activities. So for our objectives, we have at the end of the unit, the pre-service teachers. The pre-service teachers can examine the ethical considerations of using digital media, demonstrate skills in the positive use of ICT, evaluate cyber threats, cases, in media, explain roles of eco-literacy, teachers, learners, and citizens for sustainable development, and demonstrate ways of preserving the environment, display knowledge, skills, and values in arts and creativity through various forms of activities. Apply teaching strategies that promote learners' creative thinking. So that's for our objective for today. I hope these objectives will come at rest. Then for our self-evaluation, okay, the question is, how can educators and parents collaborate to support the development of 21st century literacies in children and young adults? Sino ba pasagutin natin?
May nakachat sa GC. Pero matcha. Hindi. May,
Okay, anyone who can answer? This is a self-evaluation, so all of your answers are correct. So again, the question is, how can educators and parents collaborate to support the development of 21st century literacies in children and young adults? So, okay, we have Miss Apple Javier. So you may answer.
So parents and educators can support the development of perceptive skills by encouraging their children to engage in the activities that promote critical thinking, communication, and problem solving.
Okay. Um, Thank you very much, Miss Apple Javier. So, according to Miss Apple Javier, um, supporting and supporting the development of the 21st century literacy in children and young adults, parents should have support their children to participate in many um, activities like um, going outside or something like using digital technologies and many more that that can support their children needs in the development of their 21st century literacies and with the integration of creative thinking and solving a problem. So thank you very much, Miss Apple Javier. So, oh, we have a answer from Miss Loria, Miss Sophia May Loria. Okay, let me read it. Nasaan ang in?
message.
iMessage. So according to Miss Loria, educators and parents can collaborate by fostering a holistic approach to literacy that integrates traditional reading and writing skills with digital literacy, critical thinking, and communication skills. Same with the answer of Miss Apple Javier. But this one is more deepened. So this can involve regular communication between educators and parents, sharing resources and strategies, providing opportunities for hands-on learning both in and outside of the classroom, and modeling lifelong learning habits. So, okay, we have another answer from Miss Roy Bruan. So, Mr. rather. So, according to him, through proper guidance and support when it comes to the use of technology and information in this digital age, teachers and parents must be able to arouse the ethical and purposive means of the 21st century skills needed by learners to cope with the ever-changing world. So, okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your wonderful answers. So, let's proceed to our next. Okay. Cyber citizenship in digital age. Let us all let us all welcome our very first facilitator, Miss Jessa Floralde. Okay. I-on off, on. Nandiyan natin ang notes sa tabi.
Dari pag-inat sa tatas. Kabado ako. Ay, paari ko. Ako na, sige. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, let's proceed to our first topic, which is cyber citizenship in a digital age. Next slide. So, when we say cyber citizenship or digital cyber citizenship, it involves using technology and the internet responsibly and ethically. So now let's proceed to the ways on how to be a good cyber citizen. So one, be cautious online. Even in the private groups, be mindful of what you post. Always consider the impact of your post. So number two, address conflicts privately. So resolve issues directly with the involved person or seek advice from a trusted adult. So avoiding public online grievance. So number three, responsible internet. So use the school site sources to avoid plagiarism and critically evaluate information for reliability. So number four, so we need to explore and connect safely. So use internet to learn and stay connected, but ensuring information is credible and prioritizing privacy. Number five, verify information. So always check the accuracy of information before sharing. So, or on it in projects. So number five, of course, protect personal information. Share only necessary details, avoiding sensitive information unless with a trusted parties. So number seven, set boundaries. So do not feel obligated to answer uncomfortable questions online. Next po. Next slide po. So now let's proceed to the importance of cyber citizen. So So promotes constructive communication, encourages respectful and reliable online discourse. So number two, foster respect for creators, properly crediting creators, promote a fairness and innovation. So number three, encourages honest reporting reporting bullying or crime that can help address issues effectively. So number four, maintains privacy use method like encryption and secure communication to protect sensitive information. So next slide. Okay, next is netiquette rules. So number one, double check addresses and ensure accuracy and recipients' addresses and links before sending information. So number two, fact check information. So verify information before sharing to prevent misinformation.
Number 3, reread messages. Ensure clarify and intended meaning to avoid misunderstanding. Number 4, maintain a positive tone, promotes respectful and supportive online environment. So number 5, respect privacy. Do not share personal information without permission. So number 6, avoid spam. To cautious of spam of and fraudulent emails. So number 7, think before sharing. Always consider the content and recipients before sharing personal or private information. And the last one is, of course, monitor children activities, supervise children online interaction to ensure they follow proper etiquette and safety practices. Next. So now let's proceed to the 10 commandments of teacher cyber citizenship. So number 1, maintain privacy. So avoid posting personal, confidential, or obscene content. So number 2, professional boundaries. Only respond to student messages related to school matters. So number 3, protect personal devices. So do not lend personal devices to your student. So number 4, secure communication. So keep email passwords private and encourage secure communication. So number 5, cite sources properly. Credit sources to avoid plagiarism. So number 6, online consent for photos. So get consent before posting student photos on social media. So number 7, handle disputes professionally. So avoid expressing grievance on social media. And number 8, respect copyright. So obtain permission or cite sources for lesson plans and research. So number 9, protect personal data. Share personal information only when necessary and with consent. And the last one is save student data. So do not publicly share student data. Next slide. Okay, let's proceed to the internet safety and information safety. So internet safety, it involves measures to protect oneself from online threats like cyberbullying, phishing, or malware and inappropriate content. So next, and information security, so protect sensitive data. So it's protect sensitive data from unauthorized access and threats like ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So next po. Okay, let's proceed. The common causes of information security breaches include phishing. So when I say phishing, scammer tricks you into giving away personal information through fake emails or messages. So number 2, internet scams. So they use fake websites and messages designed to steal money or personal information. And the last one is malware. So it's harmful software that infect devices, stealing information or damaging files. So to avoid it, use antivirus software and be cautious of online to protect against malware. Wala. Tapos na. May nakaligtaan ako. Dito, te.
Ano sinabi mo, ate? Okay, the next presenter is...
Okay, sige. Mag-bosses ka. Okay, the next presenter is sige.
So, next presenter is Mr. Yuri.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss G. Doralde. So, wait lang. Super. Nag-rally ka pa, wag na. Binasa na.
Dito ka na magpasa-usa.
Okay. Next is personal safety and threats. So this is my topic for today. So another once again, good afternoon, everyone. So first, we have cyber stalking. Second is cyberbullying. Third is online predation, and third is obscene, offensive content, and last is sex extortion. So for cyber stalking, we have so this is the use of electronic communication to harass or stalk an individual, typically causing fear or emotional distress. So this can include repeated unwanted messages, monitoring someone's online activity without their consent, or making threats. So next is cyberbullying. So cyberbullying, ito ang ibababa niyo. Oh, ito. Oh. So cyberbullying involves using digital technology such as social media, text messages, or online forums. But it is to harass, intimidate, or humiliate someone online. So this can take many forms, including spreading rumors, posting hurtful words, comments, or images, or creating fake profiles to impersonate someone or mock the victim. Online predation. So online predation refers to adults using the internet to exploit and prey upon minors, often for sexual purposes. Predators may use social media, chat rooms, or online gaming platforms to establish relationships with minors, gain their trust, and manipulate or coerce them into engaging in sexual activities online. Obscene or offensive content. So this one, this refers to any materials that is considered highly inappropriate, offensive, or explicit. So especially when it comes to sexual or violent content. So this can include explicit images or videos, hate speech, graphic violences, or any other content that may cause or harm or distress to viewers. So sex extortion, this is very common nowadays, especially in the internet, around the internet. So sex extortion is a form of blackmail or blackmailing someone, younger or adult, that can harm their personal life. So in which someone threatens their life to distribute explicit images or videos of a victim unless they comply with demands, and often of this of a sexual or financial nature. So this can involve coercing the victim into sending more explicit materials, engaging in sexual acts, or paying money to prevent the distribution of the original content. Okay, so how we are going to prevent these computer threats? So we have here a computer threats and fixing the solutions. So first, we need to install antivirus. So installing antivirus injector. Reputable antivirus software on all devices connected to the network to detect and remove the malware. So next is ensure that antivirus software. So regularly update the antivirus software to ensure it has the latest virus definitions and security patches. So next is employ a firewall to protect networks. So setting up this one and configure a firewall to monitor and control incoming and outgoing network traffic, helping block unauthorized and potential threats around the internet. So next is filter or all email traffic. So filtering this will implement email filtering solutions to detect and block spam messages, phishing attempts, and malicious attachments. Next is educate all users to be careful of suspicious emails. So we responsible users of the internet should follow the 10 etiquettes of using the internet. So we must educate ourselves, all users, to be careful of all suspicious emails. So by this, we can avoid and can provide cybersecurity awareness training to all users to recognize and avoid phishing emails and other social engineering tactics. So next is scan internet downloads. So sometimes we download a unknown app that can affect our computer system. So by scanning internet downloads um, from the internet for malware before opening or executing them. So last is do not run programs of unknown origin. So the same with what I've said, um, we download sometimes a app, unknown app, so we need to scan it. So next, if we downloaded it unknowingly, do not run the programs with an unknown origin. So by this, we need to discourage users from running programs or opening files from unknown or untrusted sources as they may contain a malware that can affect our system in using our computer or laptops. Okay, after securing our or filtering or securing our downloads, next is we need to make a regular backups of critical data. Why? Because performing this, a regular backup of critical data, it will ensure that backups are stored securely to prevent data loss in case of cyber attack or a system failure. Next is develop an information security policy. So developing an information security policy, establish and enforce comprehensive security policies outlining acceptable use of technology, password requirements, data handling procedures, and incident response protocols. Number 10, monitor logs and systems. So monitoring our network activity, system logs and security alerts to detect and respond to suspicious or unauthorized behavior promptly, we can um, we can avoid this kind of the threats in the internet. So develop an incident response plans. So developing this, um, regularly update an incident response plan outlining procedures for responding to cybersecurity incidents. So this includes data breaches, malware infections, and other threats. And lastly, we have restrict end user access to the system. So, restricting end user access to the system, implement access controls and least privilege principles to restrict end users to sensitive systems and data, limiting the potential impact of a security breach to our system. So next is exploring the internet, researching and evaluating the web. So next slide please. So we have here, in surfing the internet, we have three key factors to consider. So we have security, privacy, and critical thinking. So first we have security. So this ensures your browsing environment is secure by using reputable antivirus software. So like what I've said earlier, we need to download a antivirus software and up excuse me. And we need to keep our software and browser up to date and being cautious about the websites you visit in the links you click on the internet. So next is privacy. So protecting our privacy, it enables us to um, to be mindful of the information we share online and regularly reviewing and adjusting our privacy settings on websites and social media platforms. So next is critical thinking. So we have this um, words, think before you click. So this is the example of critical thinking po ano. So critical thinking, so practicing these skills can evaluate the credibility and the reliability of the information we encounter online. So verifying sources, referencing information, and being aware of the potential biases or misinformation in the internet, it helps us to develop a healthy skepticism and question the validity of the content we um, we click online. So with the help of this, we need to apply this to our daily life in using the internet or surfing the internet, security, securing our security, our privacy, and our critical thinking. So how to evaluate websites? So evaluating websites, okay, we need to be more mindful of opening the site, reading the content or reading the title of the content, and look for the answer to your question. Consider the credibility of the author or the website, and consider the purpose of the site, and actually look for the date. So that's what we've been taught by Mr. Sir Mildrin po ano. So before opening a file or clicking the link. So first, opening the site, visit the website you're evaluating to access its contents directly. So skim reading naman, quickly scan the content to get an overview of the information presented. Next is look for the answer to your question. Determine if the website provides relevant and accurate information that address your query or your question. Next is considering the credibility of the author of the website. Evaluate the qualifications, expertise, or reputation the author and the organization behind the website to assess its credibility. And consider the purpose of the site. After you consider the credibility of the author of the website, try to consider the purpose or reread again the purpose of the site. If it determines the intent or agenda of the website, whether it's to inform, persuade, entertain, or sell product services. So lastly is look for the date. So by checking the date of the publication or last update to ensure information is current and relevant. So by following these steps, you can quickly assess the reliability and relevance of a website's content for your needs. So that's for my topic for today. So now let's proceed to social media use, mobile devices, digital traits to be discussed by Miss Rian Joy Pereira.
Okay, since Mr. Yuri is done discussing with his part about the cyberbullying and cybercrime, managing computer threats, and researching and evaluating the web, which taught us on how we can take care of ourselves in any harm in using any digital platforms or technology. let us now proceed in discussing social media use. So, this can be integrated into the subject of building and enhancing new literacies across the curriculum in several ways, offering opportunities for students to develop digital literacy skills and engage with content in meaningful ways. So, here are some ways social media can be incorporated. So, the first one is research and information literacy. Many of us uses social media on different aspects like for personal use, school-related or work-related, and etc. But this focuses on how we can effectively teach our students to use social media platforms for research purposes and finding the evaluating for information from reputable sources. So, of course, there are a lot of sources that we can get using the internet, but we need to make sure that information that we are getting are from reputable sources wherein we can trust the information that it provides. The second one is digital citizenship and online safety. So this encompasses the responsible, respectful, and discerning use of technology. It involves practices like online etiquette, safeguarding personal data, understanding privacy configurations, combating cyberbullying, and comprehending the ripple effects of one's digital footprint. In order to make the students a responsible digital citizen, we need to teach them about privacy settings, online etiquette, and the potential risks associated with sharing personal information on social media platforms. The third one is media literacy and critical analysis. So, in analyzing social media content, we need to encourage students to critically evaluate the credibility and accuracy of the content, like how it was presented, including biases, perspective, and potential misinformation because we need to carefully select the information that we are going to believe and make use of. That is why we need to learn and teach the students to analyze and critique the information before they believe or make use of it. The fourth one is communication and collaboration. We use social media platforms as a tool to communicate and collaborate within and beyond the classroom. Just like what we are doing right now. We are having on, uh, an online class wherein we communicate and collaborate about the lesson. Another is we create our group chats so that for every subject so that we can have a place where we can give and receive information that we needed in our class. Next slide, please. So the fifth one is the digital storytelling and expression. Another reason why a lot of people are fond of using social media platforms is for them to express themselves. There's nothing wrong in expressing one's experiences through narrating their stories like in blogging or vlogging since a lot of people are taking photos or videos of their daily life because that is also part of them of expressing themselves through digital platforms. This can also help encourage or boost the students' confidence in expressing themselves as long as we are being careful on our actions. The sixth one is community engagement and advocacy. Aside from using social media platforms for research, safety, analysis, communication, and expressing purposes, we also use it to raise awareness and advocate for a positive change. Community engagement and advocacy are really important because they bring people together and make sure everyone's voices are heard. When communities are involved in making decisions, it helps everyone feel included and make sure that policies and plans are fair for everyone. Advocacy takes this a step further by making sure that these voices are heard by people in power, which can lead to fairer, rules, and better society for everyone. The seventh one is professional development and networking. So, we can use social media platforms for professional development and networking opportunities. This is a process where we build relationships with other people working in and around your field or industry. This can be beneficial for career growth as it opens up opportunities for job offers, career advancements, and personal growth. Of course, syempre kinakailangan din natin na mag-build ng relationship doon sa mga professional na para ma-adapt din natin kung ano yung mga traits na meron sila para mas maging fit tayo sa field na pagtatrabahuan natin. The eighth one is ethical considerations and digital footprints. As a student and a future teacher, we need to explore ethical considerations and digital footprints that are related to the use of social media because these can help us to understand the long-term implications of our online actions. Just like what Sir RJ did recently, he gave us some advice and told us the importance of maintaining a positive digital reputation, especially in our field, wherein we are the role model for every children around us, whether it is inside or outside the school premises. Also, it is for our sake so that some of our students and their parents won't lose their respect for us. Maybe some of us think that there is nothing wrong with it, but in our profession and in the eyes of the community, that is one thing that every teacher must avoid publicly. So, for social media use, by integrating it into the curriculum in these ways, educators can help students develop essential digital literacy skills while also promoting responsible and ethical engagement with social media platforms. Additionally, leveraging social media as a tool for learning can enhance student engagement, collaboration, and critical thinking across the curriculum. Okay, that's all for social media. Let us now proceed on digital devices. These play a crucial role in facilitating learning experiences that incorporate technology and promote digital literacy skills. And here are some digital devices commonly used in this subject area. The first one is computers and laptops. Computers and laptops are fundamental tools for accessing digital resources, creating multimedia content, and engaging in online research across various subjects. So, these serve multiple purposes, like what I've said, like including research, writing essays and reports, and even collaborating with peers, organizing tasks, and accessing educational software. They enhance learning experiences through interactive tools and provide flexibility for both teachers and students, enabling effective communication and remote learning opportunities. And addition ko lang po dito sa computer and laptops, even before, people usually use computers and laptops for these purposes because before, smartphones were not invented yet, and that is why people who needed to use laptops and computer are using this for their education or other purposes. The next one is the tablet. So these are mostly the same with computers and laptops, but this offers portability and versatility because we can access any educational software from anywhere. So, parang same lang siya sa computer and laptop wherein magagamit natin yung mga multiple purposes na nabanggit ko kanina. Pero ang pinagkaiba lang nito is pwede mo siyang madala anywhere. For example, kung titingnan kasi, kung computer and laptop yung gagamitin, parang masyado siyang mabigat. Hindi siya ganun ka-convenient gamitin. Unlike sa tablet na pwede mo siyang dalhin, like for example, pupunta ka sa work mo or sa school, mas madali siyang gamitin. And the third one is interactive whiteboards. This enables educators to engage students through interactive lessons, incorporating visuals, videos, and real-time annotations. These also promote active participation, collaboration, and comprehension, enhancing learning outcomes across diverse subjects and learning styles. And if I'm not mistaken, we already tackled about this interactive whiteboards during our subject in and teaching in technology. And the fourth one is e-readers. So these are the devices that facilitate screen-based reading of books and periodicals. These are devices for which reading is the sole purpose of or among the leading uses that provide students with convenient access to a vast array of digital books and educational resources, promoting literacy and personalized learning experiences. They offer portability, allowing students to carry numerous textbooks and supplementary materials in a single device, reducing physical load. So kung mapapansin nga natin, compare nga naman sa magdadala yung mga students ng napakadaming books, itong e-readers na to is super laki ng may tutulong niya kasi for example, yung mga binibigay sa ating mga file ng mga professor natin for the education purposes, pwede na doon i-download lahat and pwede doon na lang mag-open yung mga students para mabasa nila or for example, magle-lesson, magdi-discuss sila and doon na lang sila mag-open. Hindi compare doon sa books. The fifth one is the digital cameras and camcorders. So, facilitate hands-on learning experiences through photography and videography projects, fostering critical thinking and storytelling skills. Moreover, they document classroom activities, experiments, and presentations, providing valuable resources for review and assessments. So, especially nung pandemic time na more on online tayong lahat, nagagamit yung digital cameras and camcorders para it's either i-record kung ano yung mga nile-lesson natin kada araw or yung ibang activity para ang isa kasi sa advantage nun is for example mayroong absent or in case para gusto mong mapag-aralan ulit yung nilesson ninyo, pwede mo siyang balikan dahil na-record siya sa digital cameras and camcorders. The sixth one is smartphones and mobile devices. Smartphone and mobile phone are both mobile devices which you can use to call and text. The options for a mobile phone mainly end there. Apart from the models that have a camera, a smartphone has all sorts of extra functions like internet access, the option to download apps, and a better camera. So before, nung sabi ko kanina na yung more on nagagamit ng mga tao is computers and laptops dahil nga yung meron pa lang noon is mobile phone. Unlike now na mayroon ng smartphones, most people or every students already have their smartphones, which is more convenient and more portable than computers, laptops, and tablets. The seventh one is the digital microscopes and sensors. Digital microscopes enable students to explore microscopic worlds with high-resolution imaging, fostering a deeper understanding of biological and physical sciences. Meanwhile, sensors facilitate hands-on experiments, allowing students to gather real-time data on various phenomena, promoting inquiry-based learning and scientific inquiry skills. The eighth one is the robotic kits and coding devices. Robotic kits and coding devices in schools offer hands-on learning experiences in robotics and programming. Students engage in designing, building, and programming robots, developing critical thinking, problem solving, and collaboration skills. So dito sa robotics kits and coding devices, ang sa pagkakaalam ko is more on yung mga malalaking school or yung mga private school yung nag-introduce ng subject na to. Share ko lang yung sa experience ko during nung nasa junior high school sa UPME dyan sa Panaytayan, nagkaroon kami ng subject na robotic kits and coding devices. Kaso, parang sa kasamaang palad, hindi ganun ka enough yung fund ng school. And which is, ang ginawa na lang ng teacher namin is imbis na yung mga tools talaga na like yung pang robotic kagaya ng mga nagagamit sa ibang bansa, for example sa Amerika, yung mga ginagawa talaga nila like napapagalaw nila yung mga robots, yung ginawa na lang sa amin nung teacher namin doon is meron siyang binibigay sa amin, hindi na total binibigay, meron siyang pinapahiram sa amin ng mga Lego, kung alam niyo man natin yun, yung laruan na yun, na yung parang box siya. Yung ano man kasi nun, parang the same lang siya sa robotic kits and coding devices kasi ang ano doon, kailangan namin siyang buuhin, kailangan namin sundin kung ano yung nasa design or yung sa paper na kung ano mismo yung dapat kalabasan ng ganon. Pero para sa akin, hindi siya ganun ka super effective kasi kung ang aanuhin is yung robotic kits and coding devices is parang yung nai-imagine ko talaga is yung kagaya nung sa ibang bansa na like yung parang may mga wiring silang mga ginagawa or yung may mga programming silang ginagawa para mapagalaw yung bagay na yon. Okay, so then the next one is virtual reality or VR and augmented reality or AR headsets. These provide immersive learning experiences, transporting students to virtual environments and enhancing their understanding of complex concepts. VR allows students to explore simulations, historical events, and scientific phenomena, fostering curiosity and engagement, while AR overlays digital content into the real world, enabling interactive experiences that blend physical and digital elements, promoting interactive learning and visualization of abstract concepts. These technologies cater to diverse learning styles, making education more engaging, interactive, and impactful. The last one is the assistive technology devices. So, these are devices in schools that support students with disabilities, providing tools and resources to overcome barriers and enhance their learning experiences. So, by customizing learning environments to meet diverse needs, assistive technology devices empower students to reach their full potential and succeed academically. Ang example ko dito is yung for example, yung sa hearing aid, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, yun yung tawag doon, yung sa hearing aid, which is sabi nga dito, parang, ang isa siya sa masasabi na assistive technology device, kasi nagagamit siya para doon sa may mga kapansanan or may mga kakulangan para mas ma-enjoy or mas ma-enhance nila yung skills nila or ma-succeed nila yung full potential nila para sa successful na or para mag-succeed sila academically. So, by integrating these digital devices into instructional practices, educators can create engaging and interactive learning experiences that develop students' digital literacy skills, critical thinking abilities, creativity, and collaboration skills across the curriculum. So, let us now proceed onto the digital trades. So, various digital traits can be cultivated to empower students to thrive in the digitally driven world. And here are some key digital traits that can be integrated into the curriculum. The first one is information literacy. This is the ability to find, evaluate, and effectively use information. This involves critical thinking skills to determine the credibility, relevance, and accuracy of sources. In a digital age, with information, being literate is crucial for making informed decisions, conducting research, and participating meaningfully in society. The second one is media literacy. This is the capacity to analyze, evaluate, and comprehend various forms of media, including print, digital, and visual content. It involves understanding how media messages are constructed, their purpose, and the potential biases they may contain. By developing media literacy skills, individuals can navigate the complex media landscape, discern fact from fiction, and become informed and active participants in the digital age. The third one is the digital communication skills. And this encompasses the ability to effectively convey ideas, information, and emotions through digital platforms such as email, social media, and video conferencing. This includes proficiency in written communication, understand digital etiquette, and utilizing multimedia tools to enhance is essential for effective collaboration, networking, and building relationships both personally and professionally. The fourth one is the critical thinking. So this is the process to actively analyze, evaluate, and synthesize information to form reasoned judgment or decisions. It involves questioning assumptions, examining evidence, considering multiple perspectives, and recognizing biases to arrive all well-informed conclusions. It's about cultivating a mindset that values clarity, logic, and evidence-based reasoning over accepting information at face value. The fifth one is the creativity and innovation. Creativity is the ability to generate novel ideas, solutions, or insights through divergent thinking and imagination. Innovation, on the other hand, involves implementing these creative ideas to bring about positive change or create value. It requires combining creativity with practicality, experimentation, and adaptation to address challenges, seize opportunities, and improve processes, products, or services in various domains. The sixth one is the digital citizenship. This encompasses the responsible, ethical, and safe use of technology and online resources. It involves understanding and upholding principles such as digital rights, privacy, security, and respect for others in digital interactions. Practicing good digital citizenship involves being informed about online behavior, participating positively in digital communities, and contributing to a safe and inclusive online environment for oneself and others. The seventh one is adaptability and lifelong learning. This is the capacity to adjust to new circumstances, challenges, or environments effectively. It involves being flexible, resilient, and open-minded in response to change. Lifelong learning is the ongoing pursuit of knowledge, skills, and personal development throughout one's life. It involves staying curious, seeking out new opportunities for growth, and adapting to evolving circumstances and demands in order to thrive in an ever-changing world. The eighth one is the collaboration and networking. This is the process of working together, of course, with others to achieve a goal, leveraging individual strengths and expertise to produce collective outcomes. This also involves effective communication, mutual respect, and shared accountability. Networking, on the other hand, involves building and maintaining relationships with people in various fields to exchange information, support, and opportunities. Both collaboration and networking are essential skills for fostering innovation, problem solving, and professional growth in diverse settings. Next is the digital literacy. Data literacy. Data literacy refers to the ability to understand, analyze, interpret, and communicate with data effectively. It involves skills such as collecting, organizing, and evaluating data to make informed decisions or draw meaningful insights. Data literacy empowers individuals to navigate the increasingly data-driven world, enabling them to critically assess information, identify trends, and communicate findings clearly to support decision-making processes in various contexts. The last one is the problem-solving skills. So, this is the digital realm involve the ability to identify, analyze, and resolve complex issues using technology and digital resources. It encompasses leveraging digital tools, data analysis, and critical thinking to develop innovative solutions. These skills are essential in navigating the challenges and opportunities presented by digital environments, such as troubleshooting, technical issues, optimizing processes, and adapting to rapid technology changes. So, by integrating digital traits into the curriculum, educators can empower students to become competent, confident, and responsible users of digital technologies across all subject areas. These skills are essential for success in the digital age and will prepare students to thrive in a rapidly and evolving global society. So that is all for my topic. The next presenter is Mr. Aaron Bernal.
Ano muna, itaas mo, hindi, yung malapit na, dito. Hindi, ilagay mo yung dito, sa taas, para makita ni Aaron.
Dalawang kami.
Sige, dito, ilagay mo ito dito, para makita ni Aaron.
Open ka na. Ay, wait lang. Ready ka na? Hindi, ito lang ang basahin. Ay. Huwag mo na lang.
Huwag na, yan mo na yun.
Kasi maano ka lang.
I-check mo pa rin yung baka na ito.
Okay na, prepare ka na. Ito na.
Okay, good afternoon. So our next topic is about ecoliteracy and sustainable development. So ecoliteracy recognizes the importance of understanding ecological system and how society interacts with the natural world as a crucial aspect of education. The fundamental principles of ecoliteracy serve as a solid foundation for exploring essential lessons that can be derived from nature, which can contribute to societal reform while 2017. So ecoliteracy is about learning how nature works and how human impact the environment. It's crucial in education because it helps us understand our relationship with the natural world. The basic ideas of ecoliteracy give us a strong relationship with the natural, uh, give us a strong base to learn important lesson from nature. So, by studying nature, we can learn how to live sustainably and protect the environment. So, this lesson can inspire changes in society to make it more eco-friendly and promote positive changes for the planet. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, according to David Orr, 1992, the exclusion of ecological perspectives from education implies that ecology is not significant. Orr and Capra, 1990, introduced the concept of ecological literacy, which emphasizes the importance of education integrating an understanding of the interconnectedness between natural processes and human lifestyles. Ecoliteracy refers to the capacity to comprehend the structure of natural system and the mechanism that uphold the proper functioning of living system, thereby sustaining life on Earth. In simple terms po, David Orr and Fritz Joe Capra highlighted that when education neglects ecological perspective, it suggests that ecology is unimportant. So they introduced the idea of ecological literacy, which stresses the need for education to connect the dots between natural processes and how humans live. Ecoliteracy means understanding how natural systems work and what keeps living things healthy on Earth. So it's about grasping the web of life and how everything is interconnected, helping us sustain life on our planet. Next slide. Okay. Next is ecological literacy involves grasping the organizational principles that ecosystems that develop to maintain the interconnectedness of life. So this serves as an initial stride towards achieving sustainability. The subsequent step is the transition to eco-design, so which necessitates that the application of ecological knowledge in fundamentally reshaping technologies and social institutions. So this aims to bridge the existing disparity between human-created design and the ecologically sustainable system found in nature. So, ecological literacy is about understanding how ecosystem works and the rules they follow to keep life interconnected. Ano po? So it's like taking the first step towards living in a way that doesn't harm the environment. So the next big move is transitioning to eco-design, where we use our ecological knowledge to redesign technologies and social structures to be more in line with nature's sustainable system. The goal is to close the gap between what humans create and what nature naturally sustains. The next slide is the 7 environmental principle of nature. So considering the key to understanding environmental problem is about the ecosystem. Ecology can be best appreciated in school through a more practical and more relatable perspectives and manner of orientation and realizations. So the following are basic environmental principle of ecosystem adopted from Barry Commoners cited and Butler 2012. The first one po is nature know best. People need to understand nature and have to abide by the rules of imposes. In essence, one must not go against the natural processes if he or she would like to ensure a continuous and steady supply of resources. Okay, nature operate in a balanced way, and it's important for us to follow its rules to maintain as a stable supply of resources. By respecting nature processes, we can ensure a sustainable and reliable source of essential materials for life. The second one is all forms of life are important. Each organism plays a fundamental role and nature therefore all living things must be considered as invaluable instrument in maintaining balance and in the ecosystem. So every living things has a vital role in keeping the ecosystem in balance. So each organism contributes to the overall health of nature, making every form of life valuable for maintaining harmony and the environment. The third one is everything is connected to everything else. So in an ecosystem, all components interact with each other to ensure that the system is sustainable. which any outside interference may result in an imbalance and deterioration of the system. So, meaning to say, in an ecosystem, all parts are linked and depend on each other for balance. When everything interacts well, the system stay healthy and sustainable, but if something disrupt this balance, the ecosystem eh, can suffer and weaken. The fourth one is everything changes. People must rethink their relationship with the environment through relevant technologies for positive changes. As things evolve, it's important for us to adapt our connection with the environment. By using advanced technologies in a positive way, we can um, make meaningful changes to improve our relationship with nature. Next is everything must go somewhere since waste may go back to one's own backyard. In some other forms, it is important to become aware of the different types of waste, classify and segregate those that are toxic and potentially hazardous. So, ibig sabihin po, always has a destination. So, it's crucial to understand and categorize the different types of waste, especially the harmful ones. So, by separating the handling toxic waste properly, we can prevent it from causing harm to the environment or coming back to affect us negatively. The next is ours is a finite earth. Awareness of the earth limited resources leads to a conscious effort to change one attitude and initiative to recycle them. So, ibig sabihin po, our planet has limited resources. So, it is essential to realize this and make action to recycle and reuse them. By being mindful of the earth, finite nature, we can make a positive impact by actively recycling and conserving resources for sustainable future. May nawala.
You lost your internet. Ano mo na ng internet? Ano mo muna to? I-connect mo ulit.
Nawara, ano?
Ano?
Ate, ano? Di, Shem. Nawara ni connection? Ala. Sabi mo lang nawalan ng connection. Uy, nawara ang connection ni.
Pag di mo na mag-connect sa iba, no internet secured.
Ini, halian mo na ini. Sa ito.
Nawara ang internet.
Ala. Labas tayo.
Mag-connect na sa iba duman. Sa ano? Sa Peace Wi-Fi.
Di ba nagre-record pa din yan? Kahit nawalan?
National climate of thinking about the sustainable development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the future generations to meet their own needs. So,
Sige natin. Ma-charge ka naman.
na introduce nila to kasi napansin nila na there was a continuous misuse and abuse of natural resources in the quest of for the development of the world. So that would tend the future to be at stake. So hence we need a deeper understanding and action to respond to environmental issues and challenges that our Earth is confronted with.
So the Green School and ESD, or the Education for Sustainable Development, it is visualized as a school guided by the principles of environmental sustainability. So it seeks to create a conducive environment to fully utilize all resources and opportunities inside and outside the school, and orient the teachers and students on environmental sustainability through active involvement in community. So it creates opportunities through active involvement of students in the community. So napapansin nyo or naalala nyo ba nung elementary o also in high school din naman na may mga teacher na there was a times that yung mga teacher inuutusan nila or pinapakiusapan nila yung mga student na magtanim ng halimbawa 10 puno sa school or kaya naman sa kanilang bahay. So student is learning and experiences also in outside the school. So it helped them to consolidate and apply knowledge in understanding of environmental processes, interrelation and issues, acquire life skills, and help foster attitudes, values, sensitivity toward environmental concern. So let us go to the essential of green school environment. So green school environment, also called the greenness of the school, find expression in various aspects of the environment. So it seeks to create a conducive environment. Kumbaga, the greenness is also reflect for the clean, healthy, protective, and green surroundings. So it promotes both physical and psychosocial health of learners and others in school. So also it makes the student engage in collaborating, work together, and in the school environment healthier. So the green school environment adheres the following. First is the learning about the environment. So number 1 is learning about the environment, which is focuses mainly on the acquisition of knowledge and understanding of the surroundings and related issues. So for the number 2, it is learning through environment. So it also refers to the process of learning while being engaged in environment inside and outside the classroom. And for the third one is learning for the environment. It aims at developing an informed response and responsibility towards the environment beyond acquisition of skills and knowledge. So, understanding the green curriculum, first, the environment is encompassing multidisciplinary and dynamic, has scientific, social, economic, political, and technological dimensions. So, being holistic. So, a green views environment as all that is around and aims to give better understanding of the way the world functions, its operations, its alteration because of the action of human rights and its consequences. So the third is holistically addresses the sustainability concerns such as protection and conservation of natural resources, traditions, culture and heritage, safety and security, physical and emotional assurance, health and sanitation issues, concern for equity and justice of and interconnection between and among natural, social, physical and cultural environment. So, number 4 is it requires a teaching learning approach where students are provided time and space to explore different phases of environment and interconnect them. And then, a green curriculum is a mutual concern of teachers and students. So, hindi lang teacher ang concern sa curriculum ng green curriculum, but also the students. And how to create a green school. So therefore, the green school reduces environmental impacts and costs, improves occupants' health and performance, and increases environmental and sustainability literacy. So it creates healthy environment conducive to learning. So, what is the characteristic of a green school? So, first, it protects health, yes. Schools build more daylighting, better ventilation, and healthy green building materials in phase are healthier for students and staff. So, second is it increases student performance, save energy and money, it reduces carbon emissions, it reduces water uses, it improves teacher retention, it improves daily attendance, it provides a unique educational opportunity, and it creates green jobs, and it improves equity. So, napapansin niyo, puro positive yung characteristic ng isang green school, which is a big help for the student para mas mag-increase ang kanilang academic and extracurricular performance. So, hindi lang sa ibang bansa mayroong green school. Also, in Philippines, may dark green school program, which is ito yung kanilang perspective. So, Philippine environmental perspective is kailangan daw yung school ay clean and neat. So, it is an evidence of good management and housekeeping. Second is call for green spaces, so appropriate land use, planning conservation of materials and energy, proper waste management, segregation, use of appropriate materials, and avoidance of harmful ones, and respect to others' right to unsmoky air. So have management policies and guidelines also that would create a helpful and ecological campus. And then well-planned curriculum for all levels. So, kailangan oriented and trained faculty, administrative librarian, and also the financial support. And reach out to an outside community. So, ito yung to spread the concern natin sa ating Mother Earth and facilitate projects and programs that improve our environment. And then research engagement. So, it adds knowledge in the ways of nature and the impact of human activities. So the second topic is the environmental education. So environmental education is a process that allows individuals to explore environmental issues, engage in problem solving, and take action to improve the environment. So environmental education is vital to winning the fight against climate change. So without it, the leaders of tomorrow will be all equipped to overcome the environmental challenges of the world. So the parents and teachers can help the student to understand their role as environmental stewards by encouraging their students outdoor learning programs and supporting young folks who engage in student activism. So malaking tulong yung environmental education para maibalik yung kahiligan or pangangalaga ng mga kabataan natin sa environment. And then, we have 5 components, which is the awareness. The first is the awareness and sensitivity, which is, it is a crucial for the environment to have an to solve the environmental challenges. Second is the knowledge and understanding. So, it helps the environment to have it helps the environment also us to have a knowledge to deepen our understanding on how to care and give more attention to our environment. So, third is the attitudes, that is the concern for the environment and motivation to improve or maintain the environmental quality. And then the skills also to identify and help to resolve the environmental challenges. And the last one is the participation, which is in any activities, it leads to the resolution of environmental challenges. So that's all my topic, which is the first is the how to make the green school, and the second one is the environmental education. So that's all for my part. May I call Miss Irish Per Angeles Abina Gonzalez to have her facilitation.
Malat, chef? Oo. Pero pag ano mo yung ulit? Ito na ulit? Wala, be. Baka di ka makakunik.
Ay, saan ba
Di
yun?
mo ba kayo nakakunik sa luwas?
Dai. Kaya, meron na.
May nawala ka na ata.
Ate. Vince, ikaw na Vince.
Yeah.
Nawala kay ate yung internet namin.
Ano, sabihin mo na wala ang internet. Wala akong notes.
Ito.
Sabihin mo dahil magtawag na nawawala ang ano, record.
Dito na pinagay. Sige, ako na.
Wala pang ano.
So,
Sa'yo.
So, eye-hand coordination. What is eye-hand coordination? It is also known as
hand-eye coordination. It is the coordinate control
is
of
the
eye
coordinate control of eye movements with hand movement and the processing of visual input. It can be observed in diverse activities such as the movement of objects, handwriting, catching a ball, sports, performance, music, reading, computers, gaming, typing, and others. It is the ability of the vision system to coordinate the information received through the eyes to control, guide, and direct the hands. So it's also a complex cognitive ability. Hand-eye coordination. It is also ability to do activities that require simultaneous use of hand and eyes. Hand and eyes. This requires the simultaneous use of our hands and eyes. So we use our eyes to direct attention to a simultaneous and helps the brain to understand where the body is. So we use our hands to simultaneously carry out to determine a task based on the visual information our eyes receive. So eye-hand coordination is complex cognitive ability that it is called for us to unite our visual and motor skills. So it allows for the hand to be guided by the visual simultaneous of our eyes to see. So the next is next slide. So most of our activities that we do in our day-to-day life use some of eye-hand coordination, which is why it's important to ensure that it is a develop of a possible. So we have a example of eye-hand coordination.
In
In writing,
we use hand
coordinations whenever we write. As you start making lines, our eyes send visual information to the brain to
the hand
tell
is placed,
where
we use the handwriting
is placed, and we use the
with
handwriting is
information.
legible with this information. The brain generates instructions for how the hands has to move in order to create appropriate lines and
shapes
to results in letters or lines. So number two is typing on a keyboard.
So as a similar
Sequence that takes place where we type on a keyboard, the type of movements are different, but we still use visual information to tell the brain how to guide the hand or if mistakes needs to be corrected. When you another is when driving. So when you drive, you are constantly using a hand-eye coordinations because you have to use the visual information to move your hands on the wheel. It's keeping the car of the lane and avoiding accidents. So, at the end public po. At the end balik po dun sa So,
in sports,
meron naman po tayong every sports requires that use of hand-eye coordinations to coordinate what you see with your eyes with a movement if you body. So it depends on the sports, either hand-eye coordinations or
foot coordination.
foot coordinations. So, ginagamit po natin yung hand-eye coordinations kapag kapag ang mga laro po natin is basketball, tennis, football. Tapos kapag naman foot-eye coordinations is ito yung ginagamitan ng foot natin. Like the sports, soccer, track, etc. It will be more dominant whatever the sports. You can count on the facts that they will be coordinating with some parts of the body. So more appropriate terms for these types of coordination may simply called motor coordination. So the next is problem and disorders related to poor eye hand coordinations. Hand-eye coordinations can also work poorly even if the person's eyes and visions are not affected and if their motor control skills work properly. And the next is poor hand-eye coordination can affect daily activities. So these problems, disorder related to poor hand-eye remember that hand-eye coordination can work poorly even if the person's eyes and vision aren't affected and if their motor control skills work properly. It is possible for someone with perfect visions to have hand-eye coordination problems that will only be apparent when they have to use both the visual and motor system together. So sometimes po nagkakaroon po ng poor hand-eye like ano na siya or sometimes nagkakaroon tayo ng poor hand-eye because of our experience in daily lives. The next is so we have two main conditions for inadequate hand-eye coordinations. We have a vision impairment. So vision impairment it is use of visions that makes it hard. Number two, movement disorders. These are characterized by impaired body movement caused by a variety of causes such as ataxia and hypertonia, which is characterized by lack of coordination while performing and abnormal ability of a muscles to stretch. So ito na po yung sinasabing vision impairments that ito nawawala yung natin is yung pagiging ng mata natin. So hindi na siya poor hand-eye na yung mata natin. It is affect to perform our daily tasks. So this movement disorders is also that's body movement caused by some illnesses that
that it caused such as ataxia and hypertonia. So the next is number two is between three. So number two between 3 and 5 years of age. The little children can continue to develop hand-eye coordination skills and preference for left or right handedness. So it is continue to understand and use the concept of place and direction, such as up, down, under, beside, develop the ability to climb, balance, run, gallop, jump, push, and pull, and take.
And it is developed eye-hand body
It is
coordination.
developed eye-hand,
Perception.
hearing and depth perception. So next,
So hand-eye coordination.
hand-eye coordinations develop
Stages.
stages. Hand-eye coordinations develop milestones are as follows. So between birth and 3 years. Between birth and 3 years of age, infant can accomplish the following skills and can start to develop visions that allows them to follow slowly moving objects with their eyes. So dito sa between birth and 3 years of age, dito pa lang pagbata pa tayo, nag-start pa lang na igalaw natin yung mga mata natin at yung mga liwanag pa lang. So, ganun naman din pag yung baby pa. So, ganun naman tayo pag yung may mga kapatid tayo or pamangkin, nakikita natin na pag kinukulit natin sila, hindi nila tayo nakikita kasi baby pa lang sila. Then, kapag 3 years of age na sila, nagkakaroon na sila ng malinaw na paningin. So, between to develop basic hand-eye skills such as pitching, grasping objects, feeding, dressing. So, nandito na is child's develop basic hand-eyes,
Nakakagalaw na sila
or nagagawa na nila yung gusto nila like kumain or magdamit. So it's also begin to recognize concept of place and direction such as up, down, in, and develop the ability to manipulate objects with fine motor skills. So next po. So the next is number 3.
So 5 to 7
So 5 to 7 years. Children between 5 and 7 years old can improve fine motor skills such as handling writing tools, using scissors, etc. Continue to develop climb, balancing, running, galloping, and jumping abilities. Continue to improve hand-eye coordinations and handness preference, and learn to focus vision on schoolwork
4 hours every
4 hours every day. So in this 5 to 7 years old, natututo na ang bata or nakakaya na ng bata na tumalon, magbalance, umakyat, tumakbo. So that's for 5 to 7 years old. Also, ang batang 7 years old is nakakapagsulat na din and nakakagamit na daw ng scissors. So the next is by Jan Dives, the founder of the International Visual Literacy Association. He is a Jan Dives. So Jan Dives explains visual literacy to a group of vision competencies a human being can develop by seeing, hearing, and integrating other sensory experience. Next. So visual literacy is ability to read write, and create visual image. So, student must develop the necessary visual literacy skills to navigate the image intense world. So, visual literacy refers to interpreting and creating visual image and usually about communication and interaction. So, the next visual literacy by John Davis in 1969 International Visual Literacy Associations. DAVIS, visual literacy refers to a group of vision. So, another is Oxford Research Encyclopedia. So, for him, ability to interpret, negotiate, and make meaning from information presented, information form of an image. So, to make meaning from information presented in the form of an the meaning of literacy. So, which commonly signifies interpretation of a written or printed text. It is therefore based on the idea that pictures can be read and the meaning can be through a process of reading. So by Serafini, 2017, a set of visual competencies or cognitive skills and strategies one needs to make sense of visual image, sociocultural, semiotic, critical, multimodal perspectives. So, for Serafini 2017, this visual literacy is a set of visual competencies or cognitive skills and strategies one needs to make sense of visual image. So these visual competencies were seen as universal cognitive abilities that were used to understanding visual image. So this regard, this visual image definition stress that visual literacy is a contextualize the social practice as much as an individual cognitively based set of so it also a process of generating meaning in transactions with multimodal ensembles that include written text. So next. Okay, the next presenter is Miss Irish Angeles. Thank you.
So, good evening everyone. For the continuation of Ms. Pina's topic, let's now proceed to the verbal creativity. According to Roscoe 2004, verbal creativity is important for the development of a fully functioning, mentally healthy, well-educated, and vocationally individual. It is because of growing recognition of the importance of creative function, and there is sufficient evidence of the universality of creativity. While according naman to Scott noong 2004, creativity daw is related skills that can be improved by providing specific techniques to develop appropriate cognitive skills for the domain at hand. It could be realized through creative ideation trainings or the invention thinking exercise. That was according to Kaskun 2005 and Benedek 2006. While in this third visual, according to Hassan 2017, divergent thinking is a useful concept for identifying, supporting, and measuring creativity as a process to actualize oneself. because it manipulates internal and external symbols creation of illustrated ideas based on his/her knowledge senses regarding people and objects. Now let's discover the visual creativity. What is visual creativity? When we say creativity, it's the ability to use one's imagination and unique vision to create something original and aesthetically pleasing. In visual creativity, there are four main topics of it. The first one is originality. Originality is the ability to create something that is unique and has never been seen before. An example of originality is when an artist who uses unconventional materials to create their artwork, like using old newspapers to create a sculpture instead of traditional materials. The next one is we have sensitivity. It involves being attuned to one's emotions and surroundings, allowing them to tap into their innermost feelings and emotions and convey them through their art. Sensitivity naman, an example of this is when we involves being aware of the emotions and feelings that visual expressions evoke in the viewers. Like the painting Starry Night by Van Gogh, was his paintings convey emotion through his use of vivid colors and expressive brush strokes. The third one is we have spontaneity. Spontaneity, it is the ability to produce art that flows from one's subconscious without much thought of planning. Examples of spontaneity is a research team accidentally discovering a unique property of a new material and seeing a market opportunity. And lastly, we have curiosity. Curiosity, it drives individuals to explore and experiment with new art styles and techniques. An example of curiosity is an artist who experiments with different media to find a new method of his expression. Now, there are four major components of divergent thinking. Number one is the fluency, refers to the total number of ideas, options, and solutions generated for an open-ended problem. An example of fluency is when students must demonstrate fluency in a foreign language to earn a degree. Also, a dancer known for her fluency and grace plays the piano with speed and ease. Next, we have flexibility. Flexibility is the number of conceptual categories. An example of flexibility is students may take accelerated programs or engage in a part-time learning to ensure they have time to work on the side. The third one is originality. It is the aspect of created or invented works and is about statistical infrequency of responses related to the task compared with original ideas. An example of originality is a new and unique knowledge added to the body of knowledge, but the main and discovered through research, experiment, or observations to solve the real-world problem. And the fourth one is elaboration. The elaboration is the ability to expand on idea with details and the ability to create an engineering. An example of elaboration is to learn the pair cowball. A person will form a visual image of a cow kicking a ball. Gaya ng lagi natin pa-free activities na tinitingnan ng subject na, for example, yung blue at 2 is equals to 2. As yung bill plus 8 is equals to 17. Next, let's talk about the cognitive stimulation. According to Pink, 2012, the cognitive stimulation through common or moderately creative ideas was effective in improving verbal creativity because stimulation effects of it were apparent at the level of the brain. The widespread creativity related neutral work includes left and the upper temporal gene along with the right parietal cortex, being sensitive to cognitive stimulation. Now, next one is the aesthetics. Aesthetics, also spelled aesthetics by Edmund Burke, it is a philosophical study of beauty and taste. It is closely related to the philosophy of art, which is concerned with the nature of art and the concept in terms of which individual works of art are interpreted and evaluated. Aesthetic in learning is, for example, elementary learners might use play or drawing as a way to interpret and elaborate their experiences through music, poetic language, images, or even the way they dress. The aesthetical way of learning can also include an interpretation of others' people's experiences. There are nature and scope of aesthetics. It is the response to natural objects that find expression in the language of the beautiful and the ugly. I have some here questions. What do you think, guys, is your aesthetic experience in studying education? Who has an experience? What do you think is your aesthetic experience in studying education? Who have experiences? May I call Miss Apple?
Ako, iniisip ko kasi yung ano,
Okay, nobody wants to share their ideas. Ako na lang mag-share. Ako sa tingin ko, my aesthetic experience in studying is knowing the beauty of nature and finding out my new skills. So, next, for the last, there are 3 approaches to aesthetics according to Britannica. Number 1 is the study of aesthetic concepts or the analysis of language of criticism, in which particular judgments are singled out and their logic justifications are presented. Number 2, according to Britannica, it is a philosophical study of certain states of mind, responses, attitudes, and emotions that are involved in aesthetic experience. Next one, the last, according to Britannica, the approaches to aesthetic, it is the philosophical study of the aesthetic object that reflects the view that problems of aesthetics exist because the world contains special objects toward which people react selectively as described in aesthetic terms. To summarize it, approaches to aesthetic offer frame for understanding and evaluating the nature of art and creativity. So that was all for our topic. Mr. Yuri?
Tabi.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, thank you very much, facilitators. So that's it. And now let's proceed to our application. This is a playgroup activity. Direction,
Read
read the following situation and make a 2 to 3 minute video presentation on how will your group manage to solve the different scenarios. Again, for our group activity, Read the following situation and make a 2 to 3 minutes video presentation on how will your group manage to solve the different scenarios. So next slide please.
So for
So
group
for
number
group
one,
number one, dilemma number one,
you
you
open
open your account on a computer at a shop, but forget to log out. Someone else uses it and engages in cyberbullying while logged into your account. What will you do? So that's for group one.
Next slide.
Next slide. For group number two, any green school aiming to minimize its carbon footprint. A challenge arises when the administration decides to install solar panels
to power the
to
school.
power the school. However, due to the budget constraints, they can only afford to install panels covering half of the school's energy needs. This sparks a debate among students and staff about whether to prioritize other eco-friendly initiatives or to find creative solutions to fund the remaining solar panels. What do you do?
Next slide,
Next
please.
slide, please.
So for
group number three, in a classroom focused on verbal creativity, there is a child named Alex to struggle themselves verbally, while their classmates effortlessly share initiatives to
and
engage in lively discussions. Alex often feels left out and frustrated, despite their exceptional creativity in other areas like drawing and building. They can find it challenging to translate their thoughts into words. As a future educators, what can you do to help children like Alex? Next.
So for group number
four, in a grade 4 literature class, students are struggling to engage with assigned reading material due to the outdated and unappealing aesthetics of the textbooks. The textbooks lack visually stimulating elements such as colorful graphics, interactive multimedia, or modern design layouts. So as a result, many students find it difficult to connect with the content and lose interest in the subject matter. And as a future educators again, what can you do? So from group number 1 to group number 4, kindly take a screenshot of your activity and pass it on to us onto the schedule
time or day.
So
Group number one,
So,
you may take a
group
screenshot po.
number 1, you may
Group number two.
group number 2.
Okay. So the rubrics for video
So the rubrics for video presentation, we have the application objective. The application creates engaging and informative video presentations. That's 25%. Recording the video presentations offers technical support as needed to ensure successful recording. Another 25%. And script writing, the video presentation outlines the key points, visuals, and narrations. That is 50% with a total of 100%. So that's for our group activity. So you can pass it on to us as early as possible. So next, for our assignment, direction. Visualize your reflection by creating a graphic organizer about on what have you learned in a seminar workshop entitled Nurturing 21st Century Minds, Exploring the Intersection of Cyber, Eco, and Creative Literacies. So, kindly take a screenshot, everyone. And again, I am Yuri Inshong, and we are the Group 1, Group 5 brother, in Benlock Unit 4, 21st Century Literacies, a seminar workshop entitled Nurturing 21st Century Minds, Exploring the Intersection of Cyber, Eco, and Creative Literacies. Thanking you for participating and actively hearing what we've discussed for tonight. So that's all. Thank you po.
Any questions?
Any questions? Any clarifications are open.
Hindi na sa atin sa meeting. Nagano? Sign. Oh, naman siya.
I set up